Captain Marcus Cole had spent 20 years in the Galactic Rangers, but nothing had prepared him for the jungle moon of Varix 7. The thick canopy above blocked out the twin suns, casting everything in a green twilight that made it hard to see more than a few meters ahead. His team of 12 rangers moved in complete silence through the dense undergrowth, their boots barely making a sound on the mossy ground. The distress signal had come 3 days ago. A human colony of 2,000 souls had gone dark, their last transmission filled with screams and the sound of something hunting them. The Galactic Council had wanted to send a full battalion, but Marcus knew better. A large force would be heard from kilometers away. The Krixar, the predator pack that had taken the colony, would simply fade into the jungle and wait for another opportunity. Instead, Marcus had requested only his best. 12 rangers who had trained together for years, who knew each other's movements without needing to speak, who had faced death 100 times and walked away. They were not the biggest force, but they were the deadliest. Sergeant Elena Rodriguez moved up beside him, her dark eyes scanning the tree line. She was his second in command, a woman who had grown up on the frontier worlds and knew how to survive when everything wanted to kill you. She held up her hand, showing 3 fingers, then pointed to the left. 3 heat signatures, close. Marcus nodded and signaled the team to spread out. They moved like ghosts, each ranger finding cover behind the massive tree trunks that rose like pillars in a forgotten temple. The Krixar were excellent hunters, but they made one fatal mistake. They assumed that because they were predators, nothing could hunt them. The first Krixar came into view, and Marcus felt his blood run cold. The creature stood nearly 3 meters tall, its body covered in scales that shifted color to match the surrounding jungle. 4 arms ending in razor-sharp claws hung at its sides, and its head was dominated by a massive jaw filled with teeth designed for tearing flesh. Its eyes, all 6 of them, glowed a faint yellow in the darkness. Behind it came 2 more, moving with the silent grace of apex predators. They were beautiful in a terrible way, perfect killing machines that had evolved over millions of years to become the most dangerous creatures in their sector of space. But humans had evolved too, not for claws or fangs or armor, but for something far more dangerous. Humans had evolved for tactics. Marcus watched the Krixar pass his position, counting their steps, measuring their speed. The creatures were heading toward the river, probably to drink or to check on their territory. He let them go. These 3 were not his target. They were his bait. For 3 days, his team had been watching the Krixar pack. They had mapped their patrol routes, identified their hierarchy, and found their den. The pack numbered 37, led by an alpha female who was larger and smarter than the rest. She was the key to everything. The Galactic Council's advisors had wanted a direct assault on the den. It was the logical approach. Concentrate your forces and strike at the heart of the enemy. But Marcus had studied the Krixar. He knew that a direct assault would cost lives, maybe all of them. The creatures were too fast, too strong, and they knew the terrain better than anyone. Instead, he had developed a different plan, a plan based on the oldest trick in human warfare: divide and conquer. Corporal James Chen appeared at his side, moving so quietly that even Marcus barely heard him. Chen was their tech specialist, a genius with anything electronic. He carried a small device in his hands, something he had been working on for the past 2 days. "It's ready," Chen whispered, his voice barely louder than the rustle of leaves. Marcus took the device. It was a sound emitter, designed to broadcast the distress call of a wounded Krixar. They had recorded the sound during their observations, capturing the high-pitched whine that the creatures made when they were injured. It was a sound that would bring every Krixar in the area running. But it would not bring them all to the same place. That was the beauty of the plan. They had placed 6 of these devices around the jungle, each one connected to a central controller. When activated, they would broadcast the distress call in a specific pattern, drawing the Krixar pack apart, splitting them into smaller groups that could be dealt with one at a time. Private Sarah Kim was already in position at the first location, her sniper rifle trained on the approach route. She was the best shot in the team, capable of hitting a target at over a kilometer in any conditions. She would take out the first group before they even knew they were being hunted. Sergeant Rodriguez had taken the second position with two other rangers. They had set up a kill zone using the natural terrain, a narrow valley that the Krixar would have to pass through to reach the sound. Explosive charges had been placed along the walls, ready to bring down tons of rock on anything foolish enough to enter. The third position was held by Corporal Davis and his team. They had found a cave system that led deep into the mountain, and they had rigged the entrance with trip wires connected to incendiary devices. Fire was one of the few things the Krixar feared. Marcus would take the fourth position himself, along with Chen and two other rangers. They would be the final trap, positioned near the Krixar den. When the alpha female came running to investigate the distress calls, when she realized that her pack was being destroyed, when she tried to flee back to her den, she would find Marcus waiting. It was a complicated plan with many moving parts. Any one of 100 things could go wrong, but that was the difference between humans and other species. Humans did not just react to situations. They created situations. They shaped the battlefield to their advantage. They turned their weaknesses into strengths. The Krixar were stronger, faster, and tougher than any human, but they were also predictable. They followed their instincts, doing what predators had always done. They had never faced an enemy that could think 3 steps ahead. Marcus checked his watch. It was almost time. The twin suns would set in 2 hours and the Krixar would become more active in the darkness. They hunted best at night, their 6 eyes perfectly adapted to low light conditions. But night also meant shadows, and humans had learned to use shadows a long time ago. He gave the signal, a series of clicks on his radio that only his team would recognize. One by one, the Rangers confirmed their positions. Everyone was ready. Everyone knew their role. There would be no mistakes. Marcus activated the first sound emitter and waited. The high-pitched whine cut through the jungle like a knife. Somewhere in the distance, the Krixar stopped what they were doing. Their heads turned toward the sound, their instincts screaming at them to investigate. One of their pack was in trouble. They had to help. It never occurred to them that it might be a trap. Why would it? They were the hunters. Nothing hunted them. Until today. Private Kim watched through her scope as the first group of Krixar came into view. There were 5 of them, moving fast through the undergrowth, their powerful legs covering ground at an impressive speed. They were responding to the distress call exactly as Captain Cole had predicted. She had been a sniper for 7 years, and in that time she had taken shots in every condition imaginable. Desert heat, Arctic cold, urban environments, and now an alien jungle. The conditions changed, but the fundamentals remained the same. Breathe, aim, squeeze. The lead Krixar was the biggest, probably a senior hunter in the pack. Kim had spent hours studying their behavior, learning to identify the subtle differences in their movements and postures. This one moved with the confidence of a creature that had never known fear. She would teach it fear. Her finger tightened on the trigger and the rifle kicked against her shoulder. The round traveled at 3 times the speed of sound, crossing the distance in the blink of an eye. It struck the lead Krixar in the base of the skull, the one weak point in their armored bodies. The creature dropped without a sound. The other 4 Krixar scattered, their instincts taking over. They dove for cover, their scales shifting to match the surrounding foliage. Within seconds, they had vanished from view. But Kim had anticipated this. She had already adjusted her aim to the second most likely position, a dense cluster of ferns about 20 meters to the left. She waited, patient as stone, until she saw the slightest movement. Another shot, another kill. The remaining 3 Krixar did something unexpected. Instead of continuing to hide, they charged directly toward her position. They had somehow figured out where she was, perhaps by the sound of her rifle or by some sense that humans did not possess. Kim did not panic. She had planned for this. She took a third shot, catching one of the charging creatures in the chest. It stumbled but kept coming, the wound slowing it but not stopping it. She rolled to her backup position, a shallow depression behind a fallen tree, and chambered another round. The wounded Krixar reached her old position and tore into the ground where she had been lying. Its claws shredded the earth like paper. If she had still been there, she would have been dead. But she was not there. She was 5 meters away, lining up her next shot. The fourth round took the wounded Krixar through the eye. The fifth round caught the next one as it turned toward her. That left one, and it was smart enough to realize it was outmatched. It turned and fled back into the jungle. Kim let it go. It would run straight into the second trap, right into Sergeant Rodriguez's kill zone. Everything was going according to plan. She keyed her radio. Position 1 clear. 4 confirmed kills, 1 heading your way. Rodriguez's voice came back immediately. Copy that, we see it. Stand by. Across the jungle, the second phase of the operation was already underway. Rodriguez had chosen her position perfectly. The narrow valley was the only fast route to the sound emitter, and the Krixar were too focused on reaching their supposed packmate to consider the terrain. 7 of them came running through the valley, including the survivor from Kim's ambush. They were moving in a tight formation, their instincts telling them to stay close for protection. It was exactly the wrong thing to do. Rodriguez waited until they were in the center of the kill zone, then pressed the detonator. The explosive charges had been placed with mathematical precision. They did not just explode. They directed the blast in specific directions, creating a cascade of rock and debris that poured into the valley from both sides. The Krixar never had a chance. They were buried under tons of stone before they could even try to escape. Position 2 clear, Rodriguez reported. 7 confirmed kills, no survivors. 11 down, 26 to go. The third group of Krixar was larger, nearly a dozen strong. They had heard the explosions and knew something was wrong, but their instincts still drove them toward the distress call. The sound of a packmate in pain was too powerful to ignore. Corporal Davis watched them approach from his hidden position above the cave entrance. He could see the confusion in their movements, the way they kept looking back toward the valley. They were starting to suspect that something was wrong, but they did not know what. That uncertainty would kill them. The lead Krixar stopped at the cave entrance, its 6 eyes scanning the darkness within. It could probably sense that something was different, that this place smelled of danger. But the distress call was coming from inside the cave, and a packmate needed help. It stepped inside, and the others followed. Davis counted them as they entered. 8, 9, 10, 11. He waited until the last one was inside, then triggered the incendiary devices. The fire erupted with devastating force. The incendiary compound was designed to burn at extreme temperatures, hot enough to melt steel. In the confined space of the cave, it created an inferno that nothing could survive. The Krixar screamed, a terrible sound that echoed across the jungle, but it lasted only seconds. Position 3 clear, Davis reported, his voice calm despite the horror he had just witnessed. 11 confirmed kills. 22 down, 15 to go. Captain Cole listened to the reports and felt a grim satisfaction. The plan was working perfectly. The Krixar pack was being systematically destroyed, and they still did not understand what was happening to them. They could not comprehend that they were being hunted, that something was using their own instincts against them. But the hardest part was still to come. The alpha female and her personal guard would not fall for simple traps. She was smarter than the others, more cautious. She would realize what was happening and try to escape. That was why Cole had saved himself for the final phase. He knew the alpha would run, and he knew where she would run to. The den was her territory, her home, the place where she felt safest. When everything went wrong, she would retreat there. And he would be waiting. The sun had set now, and the jungle was alive with the sounds of night. Insects chirped, nocturnal creatures called to each other, and somewhere in the distance, a Crixar howled in rage. The Alpha had figured it out. She knew her pack was being destroyed. Cole could hear her coming. The sound of massive bodies crashing through the undergrowth, the hiss of rage that cut through the night air. She was running home, just as he had predicted, and she was bringing her guard with her. He counted the footsteps, 15 sets. The entire remaining pack was with her. All positions converge on the den, he ordered into his radio. Final phase is beginning. The Crixar den was a natural fortress. The creatures had chosen well when they claimed this territory. The den sat in a natural bowl surrounded by steep cliffs on 3 sides, with only one easily accessible entrance. For millennia, this design had protected them from any threat. Nothing could approach without being seen, and any attack would have to come through a single choke point that was easy to defend. But the Crixar had never faced humans before. Captain Cole and his team had spent an entire day studying the den before the operation began. They had used drones to map every centimeter of the terrain, identifying weaknesses that the Crixar had never considered. The cliffs were not as impassable as they appeared. There were cracks and ledges that a skilled climber could use to descend. The trees that grew along the rim provided cover and anchor points for repelling equipment. While the Crixar focused on the main entrance, Cole's team would come from above. He watched from his position at the cliff edge as the alpha female and her guard burst into the den. She was magnificent in her fury, nearly 4 meters tall and covered in scales that shimmered with an iridescent purple in the moonlight. Her 6 eyes blazed with rage as she surveyed her home, looking for any sign of intrusion. She found none. Cole's team had been careful not to leave any traces. The Alpha turned to her guards and began making a series of clicking sounds. Cole had learned enough of their language to understand the basics. She was organizing a counterattack, sending scouts to find the enemy that had killed her pack. She would never get the chance. Now, Cole whispered into his radio. 12 Rangers rappelled down the cliff faces simultaneously, their movements silent and precise. They had practiced this maneuver dozens of times, but never with such high stakes. Any mistake would mean death. There were no mistakes. The Rangers hit the ground and immediately opened fire. Their weapons were not the standard energy rifles used by most military forces. Those would be too slow against the Crixar, too easy to dodge. Instead, they carried projectile weapons modified for maximum velocity and penetration. Each round was designed to punch through Crixar scales and explode inside the body, causing maximum damage. The first volley took down 4 of the guards before they even knew they were under attack. The Crixar had been watching the main entrance, expecting the threat to come from the front. They never expected an attack from above. The Alpha reacted faster than the others. She threw herself behind a large rock formation, her powerful body moving with surprising speed for her size. Her guards scattered, seeking cover of their own, but the Rangers had already shifted their aim. Private Kim took up a position on a ledge halfway down the cliff, her sniper rifle finding targets with deadly accuracy. She dropped 2 more Crixar in quick succession, her shots finding the weak points in their armor. Sergeant Rodriguez led a team to the left flank, cutting off any escape route. Her Rangers moved with practiced efficiency, covering each other as they advanced. A Crixar lunged at them from behind a boulder, its claws extended for the kill, but Rodriguez was ready. She sidestepped the attack and put 3 rounds into its exposed side. The den had become a killing field, but the Crixar were not defenseless. They were apex predators, and they fought with the ferocity of creatures that had never known defeat. One of the guards managed to close the distance with Corporal Chen. Its claws raked toward his throat, moving faster than any human could react. But Chen was not trying to react. He had already anticipated the attack, had already moved to a position that gave him the best angle. As the Krixar committed to its strike, Chen ducked under its arm and fired point-blank into its chest. The creature fell, but another was already taking its place. Chen rolled to the side, narrowly avoiding a slash that would have taken his head off. Before the Krixar could attack again, Corporal Davis was there, his rifle barking twice. The creature dropped. "Davis," Chen gasped, "I owe you one." "Add it to the list," Davis replied, already moving to the next target. The battle was intense but brief. The Krixar had numbers, but the Rangers had training, tactics, and the element of surprise. One by one, the guards fell, their massive bodies crashing to the ground. But the Alpha remained. She had used the chaos to position herself near the main entrance. Now she made a break for it, her powerful legs propelling her toward freedom. If she escaped into the jungle, she could rebuild. She could hunt, recruit new members, and eventually have her revenge. Captain Cole had anticipated this. He had positioned himself at the main entrance from the start, knowing that the Alpha would try to escape. As she burst through the opening, she found him waiting, his weapon aimed directly at her head. The Alpha stopped. For a long moment they stared at each other, predator and human, the hunter and the hunted. Her 6 eyes studied him, taking in every detail. Cole could see the intelligence there, the calculation. She was trying to figure out her chances, trying to decide if she could kill him before he pulled the trigger. "Don't," Cole said, his voice calm and steady. "You're fast, maybe fast enough to reach me before I fire, but I'm not alone." The Alpha's eyes flicked to the sides. Private Kim was there, her sniper rifle trained on the Alpha's head. Sergeant Rodriguez was on the other side, her team fanned out in a perfect firing line. More Rangers were emerging from the den behind the Alpha, cutting off her retreat. She was surrounded. There was no escape. The Alpha made a sound that Cole had never heard before. It was not a growl or a hiss. It was something softer, almost like a sigh. Her massive body relaxed slightly, the tension draining from her muscles. She understood. She had been beaten not by superior strength or speed, but by something she had never encountered before. Strategy, planning, tactics. "Your pack killed 2,000 people," Cole said. "Colonists who came here in peace, families, children." The Alpha made no response. Perhaps she did not understand his words, or perhaps she simply did not care. It did not matter. "We came for justice," Cole continued, "and we found it." He pulled the trigger. The silence that followed was absolute. For a moment, no one moved. The Rangers stood in a circle around the fallen Alpha, their weapons still raised, their eyes scanning for any remaining threat. But there was none. The last of the Krixar was dead. "Clear," Sergeant Rodriguez called out, lowering her weapon. "All hostiles eliminated." "Report," Cole ordered, holstering his own sidearm. "Any casualties?" One by one, the Rangers sounded off. No deaths. No serious injuries. A few cuts and bruises, a twisted ankle, and what looked like a cracked rib on Private Martinez from a near miss with a Krixar claw. But everyone was alive. Everyone was going home. Cole felt the tension drain from his body. He had hoped for this outcome but had not dared to expect it. The Krixar were among the deadliest creatures in the known galaxy. To face a pack of 37 and walk away without losing a single Ranger. It was almost unbelievable. But that was the power of tactics. That was the human advantage. "Chen," Cole called out, "get on the comm. Let command know the mission is complete. Varix 7 is secure." "Yes, sir." Chen moved to a clear area and began setting up the long-range communicator. It would take a few minutes to establish a connection with the nearest relay station, but soon the galaxy would know what had happened here. Rodriguez walked over to stand beside Cole, her eyes fixed on the Alpha's body. "I've fought Krixar before," she said quietly. "Lost good people to them. Never thought I'd see the day we took out an entire pack without losing anyone." "We got lucky," Cole admitted. The plan worked better than I expected, if even one thing had gone wrong. It wasn't luck, Rodriguez interrupted. It was preparation. We spent 3 days studying them, learning their patterns, their weaknesses. We turned their own instincts against them. That's not luck. That's skill. Cole nodded slowly. She was right, of course. They had done everything possible to stack the odds in their favor. They had left nothing to chance, and it had worked. We should document everything, he said. The tactics we used, the weaknesses we exploited. Other teams will face the Krixar in the future. What we learned here could save lives. Already on it, Private Kim said, approaching with her datapad. I've been recording everything since we started. Video feeds, tactical analyses, notes on Krixar behavior. I'll have a full report ready by the time we get back to base. Cole allowed himself a small smile. His team was incredible. They did not wait for orders. They anticipated needs and acted on them. That was why they had survived. Captain, Chen called out, I've got command on the line. They want to speak with you directly. Cole walked over to the communicator and took the headset. The voice on the other end belonged to Admiral Helena Vasquez, the commander of the Galactic Rangers. She was a legend in the service, a woman who had fought in more campaigns than most people could remember. Captain Cole, she said, her voice crisp and professional as always, I've received your preliminary report. Is it accurate? 37 Krixar eliminated with 0 casualties. Yes, Admiral, the pack has been completely destroyed. Varix 7 is safe. There was a long pause. When Vasquez spoke again, there was something in her voice that Cole had never heard before. Pride. I've been commanding Rangers for 30 years, she said. I've seen a lot of operations, good and bad. What you accomplished today, it's going to change how we fight the Krixar. It's going to save a lot of lives. Thank you, Admiral, but I couldn't have done it without my team. They're the ones who made it happen. And that, Vasquez replied, is exactly what a good leader would say. I'll be recommending your entire team for commendation. You've earned it. The connection ended, and Cole handed the headset back to Chen. He looked around at his team, at the faces of the men and women who had followed him into the jungle and walked out alive. They were tired, dirty, and probably more than a little scared now that the adrenaline was wearing off. But they were also proud. They had done something that many had thought impossible. All right, Cole said, raising his voice so everyone could hear, we're not done yet. I want a full sweep of the den. Check for any survivors, any eggs, anything that could be a threat in the future. Then we need to find the colony's survivors if there are any. Move out. The team sprang into action with renewed energy. Rodriguez led one group into the den, while Kim took another to search the surrounding jungle. They had won the battle, but the mission was not over until they had done everything possible to secure the area. An hour later, they found them. Nearly 300 colonists hiding in a cave system on the far side of the mountain. They had escaped the initial attack and had been surviving on stored supplies and rainwater, waiting for rescue that they feared would never come. When the Rangers emerged from the jungle, the colonists wept. Some fell to their knees in gratitude. Others just stared in disbelief, unable to comprehend that their nightmare was finally over. A young woman approached Cole, her eyes red from crying. She was holding a small child in her arms, a boy who could not have been more than 3 years old. Thank you, she whispered. Thank you for saving us. Cole looked at the child, at the hope and innocence in his eyes. This was why they fought. This was why they risked their lives. Not for glory or medals, but for moments like this. That's what we're here for, he said softly. You're safe now. We're going to take you home. The evacuation began immediately. Transport ships were already on their way, dispatched as soon as command received confirmation that the Krixar had been eliminated. Within hours, the survivors would be on their way to safety, and Varix 7 would be declared a restricted zone until a full assessment could be completed. Cole stood apart from the activity, watching the sun rise over the jungle. The twin stars painted the sky in shades of orange and gold, and for the first time since they had arrived, the jungle seemed peaceful rather than threatening. Rodriguez joined him, handing him a canteen of water. "You should get some rest, sir. It's been a long night." "Soon," Cole replied, taking a long drink. "I just want to watch the sunrise first, make sure it's really over." "It's over," Rodriguez said with certainty. "We made sure of that." 3 weeks later, Captain Marcus Cole stood in a grand hall on Earth, the birthplace of humanity. The hall was filled with representatives from every human colony, every allied species, and every major government in the Galactic Council. They had come to witness something unprecedented. The Battle of Varix 7, as it was now called, had sent shockwaves through the galaxy. For the first time in recorded history, a Krixar pack had been completely destroyed with no losses to the attacking force. It was a victory that many had believed impossible, and it had changed everything. Cole stood with his team on a raised platform at the front of the hall. They were all in full dress uniform, their medals and ribbons displayed on their chests. He looked at them with pride. Rodriguez, Kim, Chen, Davis, Martinez, and all the others. They had become heroes whether they wanted to be or not. Admiral Vasquez was giving a speech about courage, sacrifice, and human determination. Cole listened with half an ear, his mind wandering back to the jungle, to the moment when the Alpha had looked at him and realized she was beaten. It was a moment he would never forget. "The tactics developed by Captain Cole and his team," Vasquez was saying, "have already been implemented across all Ranger units. Early reports indicate a significant reduction in casualties during Krixar encounters. What started as one mission has become a doctrine that will protect humanity for generations to come." There was applause and Cole nodded in acknowledgement, but the praise felt hollow somehow. He had not done this for recognition. He had done it because it was the right thing to do, because people needed help and he had the ability to provide it. After the ceremony, there was a reception. Diplomats and politicians approached Cole, eager to shake his hand and be seen with the hero of Varix 7. He endured it as best he could, smiling and nodding and saying all the right things. But it was the next visitor who captured his full attention. Ambassador Zyxthan of the Valorian Collective was a tall, slender being with silver skin and large, dark eyes. The Valorians were one of the oldest spacefaring races in the galaxy, and they had watched humanity's rise with a mixture of curiosity and concern. "Captain Cole," Zyxthan said, his voice a soft whisper that somehow carried perfectly, "I wish to speak with you privately. May we?" Cole followed the ambassador to a quiet corner of the hall. He had dealt with Valorians before and knew they never did anything without a purpose. "Your victory on Varix 7 has been the subject of much discussion among my people," Zyxthan began. "We have studied the Krixar for centuries. They are one of the few species that even we fear, and yet you defeated them completely, without losing a single member of your team." "We had a good plan," Cole said, "and a little luck." "No," Zyxthan replied, his dark eyes fixed on Cole's face. "It was not luck. We have analyzed your tactics and we have come to an interesting conclusion. Your species has a unique ability that we have rarely seen in the galaxy. You think differently than others." "How so?" "Most species, when faced with a stronger opponent, either fight directly or flee. These are the two options that evolution has programmed into most life forms. But humans do something different. You create a third option. You manipulate the situation until the fight becomes fair, or until it favors you." Cole considered this. It was true in a way. Humans had always been problem solvers. When faced with obstacles, they found ways around them. It was how they had survived and thrived on a dangerous planet and how they had spread across the stars. "We call it tactics," Cole said, "strategy, planning." "Yes," Zyxthan agreed. "And it is something we Valorians have been slow to understand. For millennia, We relied on our technology and our numbers to overcome challenges. But you have shown us a different way. You have shown us that intelligence and creativity can defeat raw power." "Is there a reason you're telling me this?" Cole asked. The ambassador was silent for a moment, his expression unreadable. Then he spoke again, his voice even softer than before. "There is a threat coming, Captain Cole. A threat that even the Valorians cannot face alone. We have known about it for centuries, and we have been preparing as best we can. But now, after seeing what your species is capable of, we believe humanity may hold the key to survival." Cole felt a chill run down his spine. The Valorians were one of the most advanced civilizations in the galaxy, if there was something they feared. "What kind of threat?" he asked. "That is a conversation for another time," Zyxthan replied. "For now, know that the galaxy is watching humanity with new eyes. What you did on Varix 7 was not just a victory, it was a demonstration, and it has given us hope." The ambassador extended one long-fingered hand. Cole took it, feeling the cool, smooth skin against his palm. "We will speak again, Captain. I look forward to learning more about your species and its remarkable abilities. For now, congratulations on your victory. You have earned the respect of the Valorian collective." Zyxthan departed, leaving Cole alone with his thoughts. The reception continued around him, but he barely noticed. His mind was racing with the implications of what the ambassador had said. A threat that even the Valorians feared, a threat that had been coming for centuries, and somehow humanity was supposed to help stop it. He felt a presence beside him and turned to find Rodriguez there, holding 2 glasses of champagne. "You look like you've seen a ghost," she said, handing him one of the glasses. "Just had an interesting conversation," Cole replied, "with Ambassador Zyxthan." Rodriguez raised an eyebrow. "The Valorians don't talk to just anyone. What did he want?" "I'm not entirely sure," Cole admitted, "but I think our adventure on Varix 7 was just the beginning." They stood together, watching the crowd of humans and aliens mingle and celebrate. Cole thought about his team, about the tactics they had developed, about the lives they had saved. It had started as a simple rescue mission, but it had become something more. It had become proof that humanity had a place among the stars. Not because humans were the strongest or the fastest or the most technologically advanced, but because they could think in ways that others could not, because they could look at an impossible situation and find a way to win. That was the human advantage. That was what made them special. And whatever was coming, whatever threat loomed in the darkness between the stars, Cole knew one thing for certain. Humanity would be ready. They would plan, they would prepare, and when the time came, they would fight with everything they had. Because that was what humans did. They survived, they adapted, they won. Cole raised his glass toward the stars visible through the hall's transparent ceiling. "To the future," he said. "To the future," Rodriguez echoed, clinking her glass against his. And somewhere out in the vast emptiness of space, something ancient and terrible continued its long journey toward the galaxy. It had destroyed civilizations before. It had consumed entire star systems. It believed itself to be unstoppable, invincible, eternal. It had never faced humans.